We all know those stories, right? The ones you hear around a campfire or the ones that pop up in your feed late at night. The stories that give you goosebumps.
But what if that little voice in the back of your head, the one that says, wait, could this actually be true? What if it's right? What if the line between a scary story and a real event is way thinner than we think? Well, it turns out some of them are real. And that's what we're diving into today. The unbelievable but shockingly true origins of some of the world's most famous urban legends.
So first up, we're going to look at a few stories about mistaken identities, but in the most macabre way possible. We're talking about horrors that were literally hiding in plain sight, and nobody had a clue. Okay, think about this. You're at a carnival, in a funhouse, and you see this hanging dummy that just looks a little too realistic. For decades, people poked it, laughed at it, even touched it. They had no idea they were messing with the actual mummified corpse of an outlaw from 1911 named Elmer McCurdy. No joke.
And get this wasn't just for a year or two. We're talking 65 years. For over 6 decades, this man's body was passed around, sold, repainted with glow-in-the-dark paint, and treated as nothing more than a cheap prop.
I mean, his post-death journey is just insane. He dies in a shootout, no one claims the body, so the Undertaker just mummifies him and starts charging people a nickel to see the bandit who wouldn't give up. From there, it was a 60-year tour until 1976. A film crew for the $6 Million Man, of all things, was setting up a shot, and someone went to move the dummy, and its arm snapped right off, revealing actual human bone. Can you even imagine that moment? And Elmer isn't the only corpse that was hiding in plain sight. You know that urban legend about finding a body under your hotel bed? Yeah, well, for some unlucky guests, that wasn't a legend at all.
Back in 1999, guests in a motel room in Atlantic City kept complaining about a really horrible smell. The staff just brushed it off, it's bad plumbing, maybe a dead mouse, but the complaints kept coming. Finally, a cleaner lifted up the mattress to see what was going on and found the decomposing body of a man named Saul Hernandez stuffed inside the box spring. People had been sleeping directly on top of him.
Okay, so we've talked about macabre mistakes, but what happens when the legends aren't an accident? What happens when they're born from the very deliberate, very terrifying actions of real people? Picture this for a second. You're out at night, and a figure in a full-body bunny suit steps out of the darkness, holding an axe, and screams that at you. That's not a line from a cheap horror movie. It's a direct quote from a real witness police report. This is the true story of the Bunny Man. In 1970, Fairfax, Virginia was terrorized by this guy. He threw a hatchet at a car full of teenagers. He was seen taking an axe to someone's porch. The police got over 50 calls about him. And the absolute creepiest part? They never caught him. He was never identified. He just vanished, becoming this terrifying local phantom. Now, over in Staten Island, kids grew up with the story of Cropsey. He was the local boogeyman, a monster who supposedly lived in the ruins of the infamous Willowbrook Asylum and would grab any kids who strayed too far. A classic cautionary tale. Except, Cropsey was real. His name was Andre Rand, a former janitor from that very same institution. After it was shut down, he just kept living on the grounds, like a squatter. And then a string of child disappearances started in the area. Rand was eventually convicted of kidnapping, turning that scary campfire story into a parent's absolute worst nightmare. And what about that primal fear of someone being inside your house without you knowing? There's a word for it, frogging, and it is terrifyingly real. In 1986, a fugitive named Daniel LaPlante secretly lived inside a family's walls, eating their food and watching them. And in 2008 in Japan, a man set up a hidden camera because his food was going missing and discovered a homeless woman had been living in his closet for over a year. But, not every monster is actually a monster. Our last set of stories shows how real, human tragedy and simple misunderstanding can create some of the most frightening legends out there.
In Pennsylvania, there was a legend about the Green Man, sometimes called Charlie No-Face, a glowing monster that walked the lonely roads at night. But the Green Man was a real person, a man named Raymond Robinson. As a boy, he was in a horrific electrical accident that destroyed his face. So to avoid scaring people, he would only go for walks late at night. His tragic appearance inadvertently turned him into a monster of folklore, but anyone who actually stopped and talked with him found a kind, gentle person.
23. Remember that number. That's how many ER staff members got sick.
We're talking fainting, breathing problems, the works, all after treating a single patient. Her name was Gloria Ramirez, but she would become infamous as the toxic lady.
So what could have possibly happened? Well, the leading theory is like something out of a science fiction movie. Ramirez was suffering from cancer and was likely using a pain-relieving gel called DMSO. As her organs began to fail, it built up in her blood. When the paramedics gave her oxygen, it sparked a chemical reaction, turning the DMSO into a highly toxic gas that then sickened everyone around her. Just a tragic, bizarre chemical fluke.
Sometimes, though, a legend is born simply because a person wants to be left alone. For over 10 years, in a Swiss forest, people would see a tall figure dressed in a military boiler suit and a gas mask. They called him Loloyan. He never hurt anybody, never even spoke to anybody. He just walked.
But then, someone took his picture, it went viral, and his quiet existence was over. Shortly after, his suit was found neatly folded in the woods with a note. It said he couldn't stand the risk of being hunted like a beast. It's believed he had a skin condition and just wanted solitude. The internet took away his only sanctuary.
So, after all this, a funhouse dummy that's really an outlaw, a boogeyman who's really a janitor, what's the big takeaway here?
I think it's that the scariest things aren't ghosts or demons. They're the bizarre twists of fate, the desperation of real people, and the tragic events that are just too strange to comprehend, so we wrap them up in a scary story to make sense of them. The truth is, reality is often so much stranger, and so much more terrifying than any story we could ever make up.
And that leaves us with one final, chilling thought. Every single legend we talked about started as a strange, isolated incident, a weird news story. It really makes you wonder, what's happening right now that's sowing the seeds for the urban legends of the future?